Welcome to another episode of TJI Talks. We are your co-hosts, Tiffany Ivy
and Julian Ivy.
Today we are joined by none other than Bishop Oral Walters for a talk on dating, marriage, love, and everything in between. Bishop Walters is the senior pastor of Living Word Christian Center, and you can also listen to his podcast, Morning Manna, on Spotify. Welcome to the podcast, Bishop Walters. We're so glad you could join us.
Well, thank you. I am honored to be on your podcast, and I really appreciate the invitation. And I hope I could be helpful to your podcast and to the people that are listening. And I hope I can share some wisdom and some knowledge. I've been married for over 36 years, and it's been a while.
Don't get it wrong. Don't get it wrong.
Can't get that wrong. It's been a while. There's a lot I've learned. I've dealt with a lot of couples, dealt with a lot of different issues with couples. And so, God has given me the wisdom, the understanding, and the experience to be able to share even more. And I think I'm probably better now than I was when I was your counselor.
That's good.
That means you're a super counselor because you really gave us a lot of great gems.
Bless the Lord. So once again, I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for coming. And to be honest, when we started our relationship, and she was like, "Let Pastor Walters counsel us." Being from the Caribbean, is that counseling? We know what we do. We don't need a counselor. But I was like, okay, let's go to counseling, and it was a great thing that we did go to counseling, because in counseling, you were able to unearth certain things that we didn't see, or let me say, I didn't see, or questions I should ask and she should ask, and what playing field we should be on, and also, we should be equally yoked, and all those things that weren't in my mind to think about and to discuss. And I'm so happy that we did go to counseling, because it has helped us to get to where we are right now.
And that's exactly what counseling does. You're so caught up with that beautiful lady next to you. What questions come into your mind? We're trying to ask no questions.
I'm just happy she said yes.
Yeah, that's it. Let's go get this ring on the finger. Let's get going. But counseling is so important. And what you said is typical of males, especially Jamaican males. And it's sad to say, especially Jamaican males, they really don't feel counseling is valuable to them. It's sort of like they think they already got it down pat. What is the pastor going to tell us? But one of the things that I always say is that I always ask any man that is reluctant for counsel, I ask him the question: can you change your car tire, your flat tire? Most men will say yes, right? And I said, well, can you change out the engine in your car? And most of them will say no. And so, so I said, well, that's why you need a specialist. There's some things you can do, and there's some things you need a specialist for. And so that's where counseling comes in. You may know some basic things, but counseling will bring out some things that you probably not even want to think of. And so it's very, very important. And with, 50% of marriages or more ended in divorce, I think it's important that we go into marriage knowledgeable, with greater understanding, rather than just go take a step into the dark, right? And just, deal with things as they come. But the problem with that is that sometimes you don't know how to deal with things as they come. And counseling will give you the guidelines and give you some basic rules and principles that you can use to deal with things as they come. Because things, things that come in your marriage, problems and issues and all those things is not to break you up. All those things come to strengthen your marriage. That's what it's for. Your muscles cannot get stronger unless you put some pressure against them, right? There must be resistance. And so it's same with our marriages. Issues come, problems come, disagreement come, all those things. But those are the things that we work on. Those are the resistance that strengthen your marriage. A marriage untested is not proven. And so it has to be tested through these struggles and these things.
True. So with this, we wanted to start from the beginning, from the dating phase. So in the dating phase, do you have some suggested questions that you can ask to determine whether this individual person is right for you or not?
Okay, now you sent me that list, so I did create a document.
You came prepared.
I came prepared. I mean, some things I can say off the top of my head, but well, most things I want to write down some very very important things. Now, understand, I come from a Christian perspective, right? And so I don't really teach dating. I teach courtship, right? I'm
Okay.
sure you probably remember that, right? Dating is the world's way of doing things, and in dating, whatever each person whatever their moral levels are, they get to do whatever they want to do, right? It's based on how they feel and how they think. But in courtship, it's based upon God's word, okay? And the purpose of courtship is to see if you are compatible for marriage. It's not saying you don't go to court to say, I'm going to marry this person or I'm going to engage with this person. Courtship simply wants to know if you are the right one. That's basically what courtship is all about. So courtship is very guarded, right? And so your hearts are guarded. There's accountability, there's prayer, there's a third party, right? Somebody to be accountable to. And so it's a whole different environment. It's an environment where you want to glorify God and you want God in this decision. Because remember, this decision is a life-changing decision. Okay. This decision can make you or break you. So you gotta make sure, yeah, you gotta make sure it's the right one. you know and I see Tiffany still smiling, so you're doing a good thing,
Amen.
because she's still smiling. I think we have talked about that. You got to keep her smiling,
Yes,
because remember, you can't hide misery, right? You cannot hide it, and no matter how much you try, it's going to come out one way or another. And so I tend to teach courtship rather than dating, because in dating, a lot of times there's sexuality, there's all these other kind of things, and then after it breaks up, people are hurt, because they have given themselves and given their bodies, given themselves, and things like that. But in courtship, there's no sex. Okay, and so you sort of guard yourself, guard your body, guard your thinking, because I absolutely believe that we should not go into marriage with our hearts. We should go into marriage with our heads, right? One of the things I teach now is that let your heart pump blood and let your head do the thinking. Okay? Think with your head. You want to go into marriage with knowledge and not just feeling, because feelings change, right? It absolutely changes all the time. One minute you could feel a certain way about somebody, and the next minute, because something happens, your feelings totally change. And so you have to go into marriage with a greater level of understanding, right? And so in the dating phase, what are some suggested questions? And I didn't put this in a question way, but what I did, I responded in a way that, put it this way: the choice of a person to be your partner for life is extremely important, right? First, it isn't important. It is important because of the influence your partner will have on your life. The person you marry will help to shape your life. He or she may turn the course of your life either towards good or bad, heaven or hell, right? And so this person has to be the right person for you. And, a lot of marriages break up because you simply married the wrong person, because you didn't go into it with your head, you went into it with your heart. And you probably remember me saying that one of the worst times to get married is when you're in love. Because when you're in love, you can't see anything wrong.
true.
Love shuts everything down, right? So the influence of your companion will either help you reach your goals, happiness, or will tend to pull you away, stop you from achieving goals, and get you to a place of unhappiness, and sometimes pull you far away from your thought and your dream of what you think your life should be. And so this thing is super important. And so it cannot be going, you cannot go into marriage without proper counseling. Secondly, the choice is important because it is for life. You see, one of the problems with marriages is this: is that people don't see it as a life choice anymore. It's seen as we can go into marriage if it don't work, we just go our separate ways. And so this is exactly what is happening in our society. We don't see it as a life choice. One of the things I ask couples to say to each other is that I am sure that you are the person I want to spend the rest of my life with. Right? And I have them say it over and over again every single time we meet. Some of them get tired of me telling them to say it. But why is that important? Because I want to get it deep down into their heads that this is a life choice. And the person that you're sitting across from, this is the person you have decided to spend the rest of your life with. Whether good or bad, richer for poor, sickness and health, you all know the vows, until death do us part. And with that understanding, I remember sharing that with a young man because he was in love with this young lady. She was beautiful, she's very, voluptuous, so he was super happy, super happy. But when I began to share with him what marriage is, he stopped. And he broke down, started crying. He goes, I had no clue. I had no clue, Pastor. I had no clue this is what this is all about. His expectation was just about great sex and things like that, and not this is a woman that you're going to have to deal with. Children may come along. It's your responsibility to provide a home, provide security. This woman must feel comfortable and safe in your arms, and all these things that he didn't even think about, and so that as we talk along tonight, there's some other things I will bring up to share, some of the questions that we need to ask going forward in dating or courtship as we go along tonight. Mm-hmm.
I think those are some key things because you know you it's often the misconception that you can come and go from a marriage as you please. But one joke we have between the two of us is we say, hey, you're not feeling good today, just sit in a corner, wait it out, we'll try again tomorrow, we're not going anywhere.
Exactly.
So, you have to keep it in your mind that this is for the long haul.
Yes, yes, it
So
is.
as we're still talking about the courtship phases, to use your terminology, how do you know that this is the person you should marry? Some people say, oh, I just knew when I saw him or saw her. Others need a little bit more time. What is that one marker? Or is there even a marker that we can look for to say this is the person we should marry?
Well, if I should get back to the first question, because it really ties into this question, courtship. And so courtship requires prayer and fasting. Let me give you my own example. I was a pastor. I was a PK. I was a pastor's kid, and of course, in churches, there's always far more women than men, right? And so I had to pick I had to pick, and I'm not saying it boastfully, very humbly. I do say it because that's how it was. I did have to pick up the litter. I could choose whom I wanted because I was likable. I was in the military. People liked me and all this other kind of stuff. And so I had to really pray. So I prayed, and I asked God which one, and when I noticed my wife, Pastor Sandra, I tried to talk to her. She wouldn't talk to me for a whole year. She wouldn't give me the time of the day because she figured everybody else was talking to me, so she didn't want to be a part of that whole crew, but anyway, after she finally, lowered her guards and start talking to me, I began to pray about her. God, is she the one? And I remember having a dream that night, and he showed me her as a flower about to blossom into something beautiful. That's how he showed me, right? It was like a rosebud, then it just opened up and it was something really beautiful. And I said, yes, thank you, Lord. That's the one. That's how I knew. And so, but there are different ways. All right. So here's a couple of questions. What is your faith? Right? What is your faith? And so if you're not of the same faith, chances are you probably shouldn't be getting married. If you're not, because it creates conflicts.
Yeah.
And one of the hardest conflict to get over and to get by is faith and your belief system. The Bible said, how can two walk unless they agree? And so if you're not agreeing, then y'all shouldn't be marrying. You know what I'm saying?
True.
So the one what and these are some of the basic things. So there's agreement on basic life principles, right? How about the importance of qualities? Is the person gifted? Is the person educated? Is the person talented? If these are some of the things you want, does the people have that person have any of these qualities? You know what I'm saying? And so each of us should know something of what we want in a spouse, right? It's silly to just marry somebody just because they're beautiful. And if they can't do anything else, or they just good looking or whatever, and they can't do anything else, they can't help you, they don't help you grow, they don't help you achieve anything, then you probably married the wrong person, you know, because they have to have some type of quality to bring to the marriage arena to help the marriage to grow and to thrive and things like that, right? What about personal character? What kind of person do you want to spend the rest of your life with? You want a complainer or you want somebody that is pleasant? You want a friendly person? Do you want a friendly person or somebody that is quarrelsome? You want somebody that is patient or easily upset? You want somebody kind or somebody domineering, right? You want somebody generous or somebody selfish, trustful or suspicious? Do you want somebody controlling that just want to know everywhere you go 24 hours of the day? That could be very overbearing. And so these are the things we must consider before we say this is the one for me. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, of course, with prayer and all those kind of things. But if the person don't know anything about prayer and they don't want to, they don't have, they don't believe like we believe and things like that. Because I know many people listen to this podcast, some of these basic things is what they're going to have to fall back on. What type of character is the person? That is so important. What kind of qualities this person bring to your home? Is the person tall? Is the person short? These things should be important. They may be important to you. Because do you want your children to be the shortest in the classroom, or you want your children to be the tallest? I mean, all these things that we don't really think about until somebody brings it to your attention, right? Because all those things can make a difference in your marriage. Now, the other thing is that we need to be careful about and look for is a person with good reputation. How often you hear anybody talk about that? Does the person have a good reputation? How does everybody else talk about this person? you know, what are their best? What are their friends? What are their companions like? Are they the party type, or always at the club and all these kind? And if that's what you don't want, then that may not be the person for you. So qualities and character and all these things are very, very important. And those should be some of the questions that we're asking. We ask within ourselves, and then we find out about the person. What kind of character is this person? What kind of reputation this person has? Is this person always honest, or is it somebody who can easily deceive you? Do they ever lie to you when you are dating? Do they lie to you? If they're lying to you in dating, don't ever think it's going to get better when you get married.
True.
Because if they're lying and you just dating, oh God help you. You get married. you know? Are they hardworking? Are they lazy? Do they just want to sit down and put their feet up and have you go out and work? Are they lazy? Are they hardworking? So these are questions, and these are stuff that we need to consider and ask before we even say this person is the right one. Are these people easily offended? Are they easily discouraged? Are they dependable, undependable? You know, and one of the easy way to tell is look at their family, right? like father, like son, like mother, like daughter. That just gives you some insight. I'm not saying they're going to be exactly like mommy and daddy, but it's going to give you some insight because they are socialized in that home. Okay. The other thing is, do they have good habits? Do they have bad habits? Are they smokers? Are they drinkers? Are they gamblers? Do they, waste all their money gambling at the casino on Friday nights, and things like that? These are bad habits, right? Do they do drugs or do cocaine and all these other things that's out there? These are the questions that you have to ask because these are going to be the issues that you have to deal with in your marriage. The other thing now that I point to, and I say to couples now, do you have similar interests and personalities? They say uh, opposites attract. That's good for magnets. Okay, that's good for. It's better that you have similar interests and personalities. It makes life so much easier. It does. It does. If you're an outgoing person and your spouse is not, then they have to overcome, they're introverts, you're extrovert, and all these different personalities. You must try to find somebody that's sort of similar to you so you can have synergy, harmony. You sort of think alike a lot quicker. The two become one faster because you're sort of similar. But when you're like East Coast and West Coast, North Pole and South Pole, and you just totally dissimilar, not alike in any way, it just creates hardship on your marriage, conflicts in your marriage, and it'll cause marriages to fall apart. The other thing is, and the last thing about that is questions you got to ask about health. Many people don't ask about health. There's back in the day, you have to do a blood test for marriage. You remember that? You know, now, now you don't have to do any blood test. And so people don't have to be honest about their health. People go into marriage, and after they're married, they tell the person, "Well, I can't have children," or and so these are the questions you got to ask before. Can you have kids? What's your health background? Did you have any STDs? Are you carrying anything around like luggage that I should? Right? The super important questions. That many people, couples don't ask. They do not ask these things, and so it's very, very important that we ask these questions. What are similarities? What are the things you like to do? Is it comparable to the things that I like to do? What's your background? What's your parents' background? And people may think, oh, Pastor, that's a bit much. No, well, this is a life changing decision. And you need to know. Like I said, you need to go into this educated, intelligently. It should be a thinking matter, not a feeling matter, because it can make or break your future.
That's true.
So, Pastor, you have counseled myriad of couples.
Mhm.
Have you ever counseled a couple and spoke to the couple and say, "Hey, I don't think you guys should get married"? You did describe that you spoke to one gentleman and tell him, "I don't think you want to marry this girl." But have you spoken to couples and be like, "It was a pleasure counseling you guys, but you guys are not fit for each other"?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, phew, I do that all the time. Absolutely. Let me give you one example. We have the lady in this couple. She's super educated. She has a master's degree in science. Has an excellent job, 6-figure income. The guy she's getting married to, he's been working at a local gas station for the last since he graduated high school. Okay, since he graduated high school, he cannot talk to her at her level. And so when she tries to talk to him, he does not understand because her thinking is far above his thinking because his mind is not open because he never really went to school. He basically dropped out of he graduated high school, but he's been working at the same, local level at gas stations all his life. And he's in his 50s.
Wow.
And so, she thought that she was going to get him in school.
That's not going to happen.
I said to her, you and this man is incompatible. You have nothing in common. You're all about the same age, but you own your own home. He's still renting, or he was living with his auntie or something like that.
Yeah.
So this man has accomplished nothing. And then the other thing, this would have been his fourth marriage.
Ooh.
And the last three marriages, the women got rid of him.
Not good.
And he blamed all of them. So I said to the couple, I said, both of them sitting there, and I said to him, do you know you are the common denominator in your three marriages? You're the common denominator, right? You got to know that. And so I suggested to them not to marry. Absolutely suggested them not to marry. And that's just one example. They went on, got married anyway. And guess what? Within a year, they were divorced.
1 year.
Within a year, they were divorced.
Wow.
And I knew it. I saw it coming. They had nothing in common. Another young lady, she came in with this young man. His pants is halfway down his butt. Never even graduated high school. She's working. He is not working. He refused to work. He just wanted to sit home, hang out with his friends. So I said to her, where'd you get this dude from? And what's he supposed to do for you? Are you serious? Are you thinking correctly here? No, we're just going to cancel this counseling because this man is not worthy to be a husband. He has no clue what that's all about, what he's doing. He doesn't have his life together yet. So there are many, I got many more examples when I said to young couples, nope, that's not the one for you. Don't do it. Couples that are unequally yoked. She's saved. He is not saved. He's down the street all the time and she's trying to be in church and all this kind of thing. So there's many, many times I have to say no. And some of it is really, really bad. Another couple came to me. The only thing that made this woman want to be with this man is what he did to her sexually. So I asked her, I said, you're out of your mind. It can't be just sex. Because in 3 months, you're going to get tired of that. And then what else does he have to give you? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. He was a bad character. He was cheating on her, even though they were boyfriend and girlfriend at the time. He was cheating on her, and she wanted to go ahead and marry him. And I tell her, no. He's cheating on you now. What makes you think that's going to change, once you get married? And so he listened or she listened and didn't go through with it. But, some people go on and do it anyway. They get somebody else to marry them. But that's their, that's up to them if they want to do it.
You gave us some gems about red flags to look for. And I mean, I think sometimes I can say as a woman, we want what we want and we want what we want.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard, even when the red flags are staring us in the face.
Yeah.
We want what we want and we want what we want.
Yeah.
Is there any advice that you can give to help women who are in the courtship phase and are seeing those red flags to know how to let go and to understand that they deserve better and can attract better?
Red flags are there for a reason. It's like a stoplight, right? A red light is there for a reason. You run through a red light, you're going to have a collision. You may die or you may kill somebody else. And that's how you have to look at red flags, okay? You could either die or somebody else going to die, okay? And so we pay attention to red flags. They're there for a reason. If you're with somebody and one of the red flags is anger, the person they just lose it when they get angry. That's a red flag. Pay attention to that one for sure. Don't ignore that one. Oh, some ladies will say, well, I made him mad. I really shouldn't have done that. That was my fault. No, don't ever say that. It's that person's inability to control their passion or control their anger. Okay. And that's a big red flag. How about the lack of transparency? You act, they won't, they hide, from you that you can never see who they're talking to on the phone. You don't know nothing about where they live. They don't want to share where they live. All this, there is no social media profile. And if they do it, they won't let you get on their profile. All the lack of, Those are all red flags. You got to ask the question, well, what are you hiding? What are you hiding? Because if we're going to go into this marriage, we must have full transparency. If somebody's always yelling, and a big red flag is disrespect to parents. If they are disrespectful to their parents, God help you in your marriage. Okay. And so that's why I say courtship is so important rather than dating, because dating called, when you have sexuality and you're dating, you're kissing and you hug and all this kind of stuff, your heart get involved in it. And so it locks down all this other stuff, shuts you down, closes your eyes to all these red flags. Why? Because the person really makes you feel good, at least for a few moments anyway. Make you feel good. And you're riding on that. You're riding on that. But and so you have to really guard your heart and be willing to let go. And when you're dating, you have to keep people at a distance, right? Because just because you're dating doesn't mean that you're going to marry this person. There are people who date for years on end and they actually don't get married. They date on end, long 5, 6, 7 years, seeing each other. They never get married. And some people give the best of their years to dating, and then 7 years later, 8 years later, there is no marriage. And so those things are kind of tough, hard to deal with. And so that's why I said you got to guard your heart. The Bible said, guard your heart, for out of it flows the issues of life. Amen. So, as a Christian, God gives us the principles and gives us the rules to live by, and if we follow those rules, they are for our safety. One of the things I teach now is that we should live rule-based life. We got to have rules in our lives to live by, and let biblical principles be the rules for our lives, because they provide such safety for us, when we are living our lives according to God's word. And so when we don't let our hearts get ahead of us and let our hearts make choices for us, it's easy for us to let go, and it's easy for us to move on. And we will refuse to ignore those giant red flags. Pay attention to them, because if you don't, you're going to have a crash. You're going to have a crash. And ladies, let me say this. Don't let the smooth words of a man without you checking his character cause you to give yourself to him.
That's what we live by, Pastor. That's what we live by.
Because his words and his character should match up. Okay? Because I know how to get to a woman. Get to a woman is through words, right? Right words can win just about any woman. The right words. If we speak the right words. But if we got bad character, and that's why you see so many women with bad characters, because the guys know the right words to say. Right. And so women will go for that, fall for that, because words make them feel good. Words make them feel special in their heart, how you treat them, what you say to them, and all these kind of things. But if that person has bad character, they can totally ruin your lives. Okay. And the sad thing about it, for most cases, women are hurt more than men.
Yeah.
Right. Awesome. Because men could easily move on. A woman can't move on like a man.
Yeah.
A man will just stop talking to you and never talk to you again. And he's been with you for 7 years. A woman can't do that, because they give more emotionally, they're connected more emotionally, and they keep everything in the same compartment as compared to a man that has different compartments at every little thing that he does in his life. And so, to not ignore those red flags, we must guard our hearts. And and the other thing about it is accountability partners. When you have an accountability partner, you must trust your accountability partner. So have somebody that you can trust, and you can say to your accountability partner, "Hey, this is what this person did," and he or she be like, "What? It did what?" Dude, you crazy, man. You better walk away from that. Oh, girl, you don't want to go down that road. You know what I'm saying? But you have to have somebody else in your life that's not in love with the person that you are in love with.
True.
Somebody that's going to look at them very objectively and look at all that is happening and share wisdom with you about what's happening. And there's no better person than an older person, an older
Yeah.
married woman or older married man to give you the knowledge and the wisdom that you need. And a lot of times your friends, oh girl, he fine, you know how you girls talk. Hey, fine, girl, go on with that. Go on. If you don't want him, I'll take him. But then I'll feel I'm a
Watch out for that friend.
tighter grip on him now. Tighter grip on him now. No, but the red flags are there for a reason. Pay attention to them.
Yeah.
Okay. So Pastor, now we're past that red flag stage. There's no red flags, and they're compatible.
Mm-hmm.
The next big thing in front of them is the statistics.
Mm-hmm.
Over 50% of marriages end in divorce,
Mm-hmm.
and also there's on average marriages last 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, why should we or anybody take a chance on marriage with those statistics?
Well, getting back to, there's a couple of reasons why marriages fail. And one of them is that people don't do premarital counseling. So they go into marriage for all the wrong reasons, right? The second thing, people equate lust to love.
Yeah.
Lust and love is two different things. Be careful when anybody said I've just fallen in love with you and I need you for this. And that. Just be very careful, because just as quick as they fall in love, some of them fall right back out of love. Okay. Love takes time to develop. Okay. And love means that you accept the limitations of the persons, all the inadequacy of the persons. You accept the person just for who they are. That's true love, right? Love is not you trying to project how this person should be and your expectation of this person, how they're going to be and all this. No, love has nothing to do with that. Love accepts a person just for who they are. Now, the other thing is that conditions doesn't change love. Okay? Conditions does not change love. It doesn't matter how bad situations are, or good it is, they will never change that they're feeling for you when they truly love you. Whether you're sick, whether you're healthy, whether you're rich, whether you're poor, when somebody loves you, it does not matter to them, right? Let me give you an example. There was a young man when I was growing up, one of our young ladies in one of our churches, beautiful, beautiful, saved, sanctified young lady. This young man said he was totally in love with her and he wanted to marry her, and they got engaged and all that kind of stuff, and then she got sick and was in a hospital for a while, and he went to see her and broke off the engagement. You know why? Because he said he could not deal with it. But this is the woman he said he loved. Okay. And you know what happened because he did that to her? Her sickness became worse because she went into depression now because the one person that she was dependent on turned on her. Okay. Because it wasn't real love. It was nothing but lust, infatuation. That's what it is, and a lot of times people get infatuated with people and mistake it for love. And when situations change, circumstances change, all of a sudden, this is not what they signed up for. And so they're out of here. Okay. And so it's important that I think counseling and proper godly counseling is important to stem this tide of marriages falling apart, even in the church, and even in church, people get bad counseling. Not everybody good counselors. Okay. Some people get bad counseling. And so I don't base marriage on love. I base marriage on covenant. Okay. And I'm sure you two know about that. Marriage is a covenant, right? It ain't a love fest. It's a covenant. Marriage it comes to make the covenant sweet. It's the icing on the cake, right? That's what the love is for. But the root of the matter, the meat of the matter is that marriage is a covenant and it's supposed to be lifelong, unbreakable, until death do you part. And that's why I hammer that into the minds of those who I sit and counsel, because they must leave counseling knowing that, hey, this thing is permanent And I always say between you two and the Holy Spirit, there should be nothing you can't resolve and work out. You know? And even when people step outside their marriages and messed up, I tell people all the time, you have a right to divorce, but you also have a right to forgive and reconcile.
Wow.
Okay? Because people do mess up big time. Okay? We just had a remarriage in our church. You know, one of our husbands left his wife for 5 years. 5 years. You know, and went off with somebody else, you know, had a child and all this kind of stuff. But 5 years later, he came back, you know, and they got remarried. It was just such a beautiful thing,
That's
you know,
beautiful.
see them come back and bring the family back together, you know, the family come back as one. And they were celebrated by people. People were shocked and surprised, and they were still celebrated today. And that's such a great testimony for other people to see. You know, there may be inconsistencies in our marriage, there be mistakes in our marriages, but you don't. It doesn't have to. You don't have to make it permanent. It depends on how you choose to deal with these situations in your marriage. And so, I believe one of my mandate that God has given me is for me to teach marital counseling in such a way that we can stem this tide of
Yep.
divorce, because the Bible does say that God hates divorce, and there's not too many things God said He hates, but divorce is one of them. You know, the others are lying lips, but divorce God really hates. And so I try to teach the church and people of God that you don't want to do something that God hates. You know, make sure you're living your life in integrity and honesty. You're trusting, because trust loss is almost impossible to regain. And you know, we all know that you lose trust, it never be the same. It's like dropping an egg and it breaks, and you got to glue it all back together. It never be the same again. You always
Yeah.
gonna see them cracks. Okay, you
Yeah.
always gonna see. Okay, so it's important. I believe all marriage can last with proper counseling, proper humility, okay, and understanding between the couples. I believe every marriage can last. It's just when people want to stick to their positions and don't want to humble themselves, there's no compromise, there's no communication, people are not listening any longer, you know, they got bad counseling or taking bad advice from their friends on the outside. I know one particular couple, uh, excellent husband, this man does everything for his wife, they do very well. They own their own home and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, but her friends try to tell her, you know, well, he's not romantic and he's this and he's that. And she fell for it and divorced the man.
No.
Divorced
No.
the man, left the man, well, quote unquote, because he ain't romantic. Instead of her teaching him how to be romantic. Well, a few years later, he got married to a beautiful lady. He's happy as a lark, and she's still unmarried. And she's totally miserable. Totally miserable. You didn't want to be around her too long. Miserable. When she had it all going for her, but she let her friends, let people talk her out of her marriage. Don't let people do that to you, because they'll just be laughing at you later on.
True.
As I said, friends can help you. They could help you get into hell, but they can't help you out of hell.
Good words, good words.
Yeah.
You know, ladies, don't let your friends talk you out of a good man.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you this, right? Say if you're married,
Mm-hmm.
but you're unhappy in your marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there has been no adultery, there is no abuse,
Mm-hmm.
but you're just unhappy. And you look and you see other people who've gotten divorced and they look happy. And you're
Look.
like, man, I want that kind of happiness for myself. What do you do? Like, I mean, how do you make your marriage last if that's what you're feeling?
Well, let me say this about happiness. One thing I always say is that, the grass is always greener on the other side until you get over it. It was artificial turf. They look like that. Okay. But happiness comes from within. One of the problems that a lot of couples have is that they think it's their spouse's responsibility to make them happy. It is not. It's your responsibility to make you happy. You can take two couples, right, and put them in the same situation. One couple is super happy and one couple is unhappy, right? It's based on how we receive and how we respond to every situation that comes into our lives. And so one of the things to garner happiness is for couples to speak about, one, identify what you're unhappy about. Some people go around holding stuff in, never say nothing that they're unhappy. What's making you so unhappy? Some people cannot even verbalize it. They don't really know why they're unhappy. And a lot of times, some folks are unhappy because of unrealistic expectation or unfulfilled expectations. One of the things I say is unfulfilled expectation will always lead to frustration. Okay. It always leads to frustration. And so if you're unhappy about something, it's important that you share that concern with your spouse. Okay. And stop looking at other people's happiness because it could be a facade anyway. You're not living with them, but just look fake. They wishing they're probably wishing, single people wishing they had your marriage, because there's something in your marriage that they see that they like. And even though you may not feel that you are happy within your marriage. And so happiness is based on our response to external circumstances. So it's up to us to change within according to the circumstances and to remain joyful and to remain in a system or place of happiness, right? If we're constantly dependent on our spouse. Now, can our spouse contribute to our happiness? Absolutely. And I think we should contribute to,
I agree.
your spouse happy. And do the things that make him happy, do the things that make her happy, right? Say the things and do the things that make them happy. Because that should be your focus. If you love somebody, you should really want to do the things to bring joy to their life, to make their life easy, to make their life comfortable. If you really love them, the Bible said a man should love his wife like Christ loved the church and gave himself for her, willing to give everything that he has to his wife and his wife. When a man is doing that, she will give everything she has to him in a term called submission, submittedness, where a lot of women don't want to hear about, but it really means respect, super respect for
Yes.
your husband because of his love. But submission can only be released in a woman when a man loves her. It's an automatic response to his love. It's not something she does, it's something she becomes, if you understand what I'm saying. And it only happens by his love. If he's not loving her, she cannot become submitted. She may be subjugated, but she is not submitted. You know what I'm saying? And so that's why God said, love her and for her to submit to him. But it only happened because the man has to be the initiator of it. Women don't have a problem with love. That's why God never said for a woman to love a husband. Women don't have a problem. A man has the problem with love. And so we've been given that direct command. So what the women tend to have problems with is submission. So God give her that submission, but he speaks to the man first. And it's the love of a man that releases or what the thing that God has placed in a woman for her to be respectful and for her to be submitted to her husband. But happiness, it must be worked on. And one of the things I also share, in my latest counseling session is that whatever, when you have two persons in a marriage, the person that recognizes a lack in the marriage is the person that should take action to bring that into your marriage. Okay, so if there's no passion in your marriage, and Julian, you recognize it, guess your duty is to do what? Bring passion to your marriage, right?
Yep.
Bring
Yep.
it up. Say, Tiffany, I realize we don't have any passion, and I just wow, we haven't done anything lately. Can we go do something? You know what I'm saying? When you recognize something, it's your responsibility to initiate it and get it done.
Yes.
Uh,
Yep.
Um, in anything, the one that recognizes is the one that should initiate it. Okay. And this when I say initiate it, talk about it, come together, bring it to the forefront, and get those things in your marriage. If there's no sweetness in your marriage, if you recognize it, bring it up, talk about it, and do something that brings sweetness into your marriage. Because your spouse maybe totally have no clue you know. But if you recognize it, that simply means God opened your eyes to it for you to do something about it. All right, because it's God's will that all marriages survive. You know,
Yep.
the only time I'll tell a spouse to separate is if there's physical abuse. If a man is beating up on his wife, I would say that man need to leave the house. Okay,
Yep.
he just need to go, because, and ladies, don't let him tell you he love you, because him punching you and beating on you is not, it ain't love. It's not a fruit of love. That's a fruit of hate. Okay, a man is beating on you. That's a manifestation of hate, not a manifestation of love. Okay, because love never causes harm to the object of its love. Okay, I know a lot of women dealing with physical abuse, and all the husband says, well, you know, I still love you, and she falls for it. You know, don't fall for it. No, don't. No father would have given you to a man for him to be beating on you. Okay, at least I wouldn't give my daughter to a man that's going to be beating on her. Absolutely not. No. And so that should never happen. Never, never happen. But other than that, you know, a man beating on his wife, or he consistently stepping out of the marriage, having extramarital sex, which is now a very, very dangerous thing to do in today's society, with all the things that's going on in society. I say to a woman, protect yourself. You know, this is kind of stuff that you just have to separate yourself from, because what's out there in the world today is very, very deadly. And he can go out and get something, come give it to you, and kill you with it. Right. So we can't play those games today anymore. It ain't those days where you go to go get a shot and clear it up. Them days are long gone. Okay. But other than that, we should be able to work out everything else in a marriage, and to keep the marriage going. Those two things are non-negotiables. We're not going to negotiate you stepping out of a marriage, or we're not going to negotiate you beating, physical abuse. We're not going to negotiate that.
Good.
True.
Yeah, I agree, Pastor. And you know, with the younger generation now getting married, I really want to ask the question of, you know, our grandparents knew how to sustain a marriage.
Mm-hmm.
35, 40, 60, 70 years till death do us part. What are the younger generation getting wrong?
Confusing love with lust, unrealistic expectations, lack of compromise. We live in this me, myself, and I world today. Bad attitude towards marriage, not being prepared for marriage. You know, back in the day, marriages last because everybody knew their roles. You know, there's nothing wrong with a wife waking up in the morning, making breakfast for her husband and for her kids, get them off to school, and everybody goes to work and come home. You know, there's nothing wrong. Those days are long gone, and we see what has happened now, right? Men don't know their positions. Women don't know their positions. You know, some houses are led by the women, even though there's a man there. You know, is what mommy says rather than what daddy says. And I don't have a problem, you know, with a strong lady in the home, and carrying out, you know, being the person that does most of the discipline in the house, because that's normally how it is. Daddy sets the rule and mommy sets it in action. We get that. But when daddy, remember back in the day, mom would say, wait till your daddy come home. And Lord knows you were running scared all evening. You make sure all your chores are done. You make sure you get your shower on time, you know, and you in bed early because daddy coming home. So what is lost today is the respect for daddy, the respect for the fathers in the home. Men in today's society have mostly been emasculated. Look at all the commercials. What are men doing? It's the woman on the ladders now. It's the woman riding the lawnmowers. You know, just look at the commercials and you see what's going on. Who's the spokesperson in the house? It's the woman now. And so man just sits there very quietly. He may get to chime in once or twice. You know, if he says something stupid, the woman look at him, he shuts up. You know, it started back in the day when, remember the beer commercial, and the guys are sitting around talking about what's up, and that's stupid nonsense. We're portrayed as total buffoons and idiots, you know. And so that's what has happened to our society today. Men are really emasculated, and they really don't know their place in the home. and they're not playing that, they're not in that role. And because of that, we have dysfunctional homes, and dysfunctional homes lead to dysfunctional kids, you know, and then that got passed down from generation to generation. One of the problems in our Black community is the lack of men in the home, or lack of the biological father in the home. Then there's abuse. There's all kinds of stuff that is going on, and that's why I don't. These marriages, they don't last. Because it's not role based. Everybody sort of have to do everything. A man is not no longer responsible for taking care, providing for his wife. He's expecting his wife to bring her 50%. If she don't bring the 50%, the mortgage is not paid that month because she didn't bring her 50%. All this kind of foolishness that goes on, we no longer remember that it's our duty to provide for our wives. And once we understand that, there's nothing wrong with a woman working and a woman, bringing in money into the house, even make more money than a husband. I don't have a problem with that. But as long as I know that my responsibility is to provide the home for my family, right?
Yeah.
Thank God she has a good job, so she helps me in doing that. Then thank God. But it doesn't absolve me of my role and my responsibility. And as men, we need to be retrained about our roles, our responsibilities in our homes. We need to once again learn how to treat our wives with respect and honor, and respect their thoughts, respect their thinking, respect their minds. They bring a total different perspective to the decisions that we're trying to make. And a lot of times we make bad decisions because we didn't listen to their wives' perspective. God put them in your life for a reason, right? Listen to them. And same vice versa. Women got to support their husband. Sometimes we make some stupid decisions, do some stupid things, but you be there to support and say, okay, baby, you messed up. Well, come on, let me help you up and get you back on the road. Let's go try again. Let's do it a little differently and things like that. So she must be there for support. He must be there to provide. And once everybody understand their roles, their responsibility, I think it gives the family a better chance to be successful. But gone are the days. Women don't want to make their husband breakfast. I went to a men's. And this is really extreme. In a men's meeting that we had in one of our churches, we had about 50 men in there, and one man, he was saying how he's just so frustrated because he's the only one working in the house. And he works 12 hours a day, and his wife sits at home. And when he come home, all he wants is a hot meal. But his wife sits at home all day. She eats for herself. And if you see her, you know what I'm talking about, right? And when he comes home, when he comes home, she tells him to make his own food. It's in the freezer. And he's asking the men how to deal with it. So I'm thinking these men are going to jump up and say, listen, dude, you need to get your wife into counseling. You two need to sit down and talk, because you cannot be working 12 hours a day. And she sits home all day and refuse to at least make you a hot meal. Seriously? She doesn't do she does nothing but eat all day and watch soap operas, but instead the men said, I was shocked. They said, well, ain't nothing wrong with that. You come home, just go to the freezer, get your food and just, and warm it up. I was like, where am I at? I want to walk out the meeting because I was like, what kind of men are these? Seriously? They have no clue whatsoever. And so that's why, marriages are breaking up and families are dysfunctional, because men have no clue. They have no authority in their homes. They have given their authority to their wives or to their women in the home. And so they have none. So they are emasculated. A woman tells them what to do, when to do, how to do, and where to do it. That's a problem. And that really is a problem. And so until that changes, we're going to have marriages breaking up at early stages, because they simply fall apart. They didn't get into it properly. There was no premarital counseling. So they go in it uneducated about what marriage is all about. They go in it not understanding the roles and responsibility of each person in that relationship. And so it just creates a lot of dysfunction and creates separation and divorce.
Okay. Well, thank you. This has been like a lot of information. You dropped some nuggets that I'm like, you know, were good for me to hear as well. So as we are about to close out, one thing we like to do here on TGI Talks is just have our guests give our listeners one thing that they can do, one action that they
Mhm.
can take. So can you give us one action that we can take immediately to improve the quality of the marriage?
Yeah, one thing. I just wrote one thing. Find the one thing that your spouse absolutely loves and present it to him.
Wow.
Whatever that one thing is, you know, just find that one thing that they absolutely love. That will just bring a joy to their face, a smile on their face. Just find that one thing and present it to them. That's it.
I think that changes a lot too. When you find that one thing that a person loves and you bring it to them. Sometimes I see that change in her when I do something special for her that
Yeah.
I know she likes, and it's just like she changes and like how she was. I guess her behavior prior it just changes for a long period of time, but I have to repeat
Yeah.
that,
And,
you know.
and when you do those things, it produces a great night.
Oh yes, it does.
It's what I
Yes, it
call, it's what I call a guarantee.
does. You go to work skipping.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Your friends know something happened the night before. You know, like boy, why are you smiling so much today, huh?
Run your business.
Yeah,
Yes, Pastor. Yes, that's
and you
good.
know, and it works both ways too. You know that it works both ways. A
Yes.
woman finding something that a husband loves, giving it to him, it just works wonders for a man when a woman will do that. You know, so it works both ways.
Does. Well, Pastor Walters, Bishop Walters, as always, it is a pleasure. Listeners, this man has dropped so many gems, so many ways that can help improve our marriage if you're dating, so many things to look out for, so many things to be aware of, because as he said, who you marry can make or break your future. And so it's very important. I hope you found something useful from this that you can take with you, and if you're married, implement that action item. Bishop Walters, can you tell our listeners how they can connect with you through social media or online?
Yes, our church is Living Word Christian Center, located in Coral Springs, Florida. We also have a Morning Manna podcast every morning at 6 a.m. We do podcasts, and it is also recorded on Facebook and also on YouTube. So if you find our church, Living Word Christian Center, make sure it's the church in Coral Springs, Florida, because I think there are 3 or 4 Living Word Christian Centers on YouTube. But we're the ones in Coral Springs, Florida, 3301 Riverside Drive. You can follow us on there. And from our website, we also have a website, www.churchofchoice.com, churchofchoice.com. You can go to our website and follow us on our website and get the links from there to our podcast and also to our YouTube. All right. And that's the easiest way to get a hold of us. If you want to call the church, you can always call 954-255-8403. Amen.
Nice.
And I must say, it's a pleasure to be on here with you, Tiffany and Julian. Man, it's just, I'm just, I was glad. I'm so glad that I was able to play a significant role in your lives. And to see you guys 9 years later, still looking good, still looking young, you know.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, I see you, Tiffany, still leaning on Julian. It's just how it works. Praise the Lord. That's still good. Y'all still smiling. I can see the joys in your face. It just warms my heart. And I just give God thanks for you too. So I pray that God will continue to bless you and open doors of opportunity for you. And I pray that this podcast here and what you're doing will be a help to your generations, and that people will listen to the wisdom and that which you have learned over these years as you share with them. It will help to change and transform somebody's lives. So I pray that God will have favor on your head, increase on your hands, and swiftness to your feet. God bless you. I love you both.
Love you too.
Thank you very much,
Amen.
Pastor.
So, TJ Talks, you heard it from the man of God himself, none other than Bishop Oral Walters. As we say here, until next time, walk good.